They get it across. Mahone against Moore. It's a 2-point ball game. Creighton has the ball in that 2-point lead. Good feed to Mahone.
At the age of 79, Mark Ahmann is doing what he loves most, play-by-play sports. Mark Ahmann was born in Remsen, Iowa, near LeMars, Iowa, in 1933. In 1950, Mark graduated from Remsen St. Mary's High School. Already a skilled athlete, Mark landed a second base slot with the New York Yankees organization at their farm club in McAlester, Oklahoma. Forced to leave after an injury, Mark joined the Army. After 2 years of military service, Mark decided on a career in radio.
Gene Sherman was a good friend of mine, a sportscaster in Sioux City, and I did some work. Actually, my first commercial work was one night at a high school basketball game. He said, "Now with the second half, here's Mark Ahmann." And I did it, and then I said, "Well, Gene, how would I get involved?" And he said, "Well, it'd be a good idea to go to this broadcasting school in Minneapolis and I liked the idea because they guaranteed you your very first job." So at the time it was the American Institute of the Air, now Brown Institute. The government was giving me money under the GI Bill, and I thought, hey, if they're going to guarantee me a job, it's a good place to go.
Not just radio, but Mark was drawn to sports broadcasting in particular.
Again, kind of with Gene Sherman. I mean, Gene was a sportscaster, and I was not a great athlete. I liked baseball. I played some baseball, a little professional baseball, but I wasn't so interested necessarily in being a disc jockey. I didn't know that I had much training to be a newscaster as such, and I just thought, as a matter of fact, when I was at home yet, before I went to broadcasting school, I had my old Webcor recorder, and I used to go to high school games, and I'd sit in a certain part of the gym and get the lineups and tape play-by-play. And I don't know, it was just something that I was more interested in the sports angle than I was in news or being a disc jockey.
Mark's move to Michigan put him in the spotlight at a higher level with his opportunity to broadcast the game of the century.
Every year you have the game of the century, but 1966, Michigan State and Notre Dame were 1-2. And that was a great opportunity for me to broadcast a game involving those people that were number 1 and number 2. And, of course, the game ended up in a 10-10 tie. And they always said that Eric Parsegian of Notre Dame kind of sat on the football, and as a result, he was going to settle for a tie rather than a win. Michigan State led 10-0, and then the game ended up 10-10. And when it was all over, I thought, hey, all this hype, all of this, and now we have a tie. Of course, that wouldn't happen today. Because they play off ties until there is a winner. But to go from the North Central Conference, teams like Morningside, and then all of a sudden go to Michigan State. And the first year that I worked at Michigan State, I worked with Ernie Harwell, who had done some football but was better known for baseball. So that was quite a jump for a young man out of Remsen, Iowa, to go from doing sports in Sioux City and play-by-play of high school stuff, ending up going to Lansing, Michigan, and doing college football. And Duffy Doherty, of course, was the head coach there. And all those things kind of was another reason why sports broadcasting was so intriguing to me.
Over the years, Mark has had an opportunity to rub shoulders with a number of names in sports and politics.
Every year we'd go to a different bowl. That was quite an experience. I helped out doing some work at the Orange Bowl in 1973 when Nebraska played Notre Dame. But one of the most kind of fun thing, I was co-master of ceremonies for Governor Carey's inauguration, and that was quite a thrill to be asked to do that, to be inducted into the High School Sports Hall of Fame was a great honor, and also to be named the Citizen of the Year in Wayne was quite an honor. So to try to put a feel on any one thing, it's most difficult, but I always like to get ready and prepare, and one of the stories I always tell is be prepared, because you're going to come across names you may not be familiar with. Like I did a high school game one night, the starters were Zaglanis, Stepyan, Stolnicki, Kibalowski, and Krogalecki, and I remember those, and that was over about 50 years ago. And one kid who didn't play, his name was Shaw. So, I kind of remember that, but to pick out a particular thing, maybe the interview with Red Skelton, working with Ernie Harwell, working with Tom Osborne and Bob Devaney, I was so blessed that to be with those type of people, because everybody kind of knows those. I did hockey, a kid from Remsen, Iowa, doing collegiate hockey was quite an experience, but I enjoyed doing that. Get the puck up the ice. And I fell off my chair one night doing a game between Michigan State and Notre Dame. I was on a riser. I stood up as Michigan State rallied from a 5-0 deficit to tie it. When I sat down, the back legs of the chair were off the riser and I fell backwards. But on radio, it doesn't make any difference.
Mark also reflects on his close association with Nebraska sports.
How many different films have you exchanged with him? 4 or 5 or just
11?
11? Every game.
We just called them up, and they originally talked about exchanging 5, and we said, well, why don't we go all 11? And then nobody's got any secrets.
I used to ride with Don Gill and Stan Leonards, who at one time was president of the broadcasters. We used to rent a van, Stan did, because he was a salesperson, and I can remember it was one of those traveling vans, I don't know what you call them, and fancy. You could live and die in one of those. Well, he went under a canopy type thing at a motel in Missouri, and the van was a little bit higher than the overhang, and he ripped off the air conditioner right off the top of that. Flying to a game one time at a private flight. Coming back or going down, we hit some headwind, and the pilot, I could always sleep on the airplane, but he woke me up and he pointed at the gauge on the fuel, and it showed nearly empty. I don't know why he showed that to me. If I was sleeping, I'd have been better off. Well, we didn't crash or anything, but some of the bowl games, I emceed a banquet that Keith Jackson was a speaker at. I did that, and I don't know. There's just so many things. Nights at the Legion Club, a good friend of mine, Bob Logston, just died recently, and I spent a lot of nights at the Legion Club. I'd sign off on the sports. When I signed off, Janie would leave the house, I would leave the TV station, and we'd meet at the Legion Club. It was like a big magnet. So I don't know. I just enjoyed all those years and all the acquaintances I've made there. We haven't mentioned much about Wayne State College, but I think back on Greg McDermott when he was the head coach here, and a baseball program was great. And I just say I was truly blessed. And on top of that, I was blessed to have a wonderful wife all these years, over 50 years. And the thing about it is, the first summer that we went together, the only summer we went together before we got married, she saw more baseball games, I think, that summer than she did any time in her life, because she went with me all the time, going to such places as Manning and Coon Rapids and Lorville and some of those big communities. But it's been quite a life.
Today, Mark continues his daily interview program, The View from Wayne, America. Mark talks about The View and how Wayne, America came about.
Wayne America is a term maybe some people are not familiar with, because that was something that one guy is responsible for. And if you notice the water towers here in Wayne, they say Wayne America. They don't say Wayne, Nebraska, or just plain Wayne. I'm not really sure who was responsible for the name of the show, but we used to do it from down at an automobile dealership is where it started, Arnie's Ford Mercury, and then we moved it out here. And, interesting people that I have interviewed, again, going back, I can recall going to Arnie's the morning of 9/11 when the planes were crashing. I didn't know what was going on, but they had the TV on, so I always kind of remember that. And the day that we're taping this, I just did an interview with a guy in Luling, Texas. And you might say, why would you visit with a guy in Luling, Texas? Well, they're having the annual watermelon thumping celebration down there. So those are the kind of things that we like to do, the most unusual type thing, and also to visit with personalities that are in the news. Like I interviewed Ernie Harwell before he passed on. I've had a chance to visit with governors and that sort of thing. It's just kind of where we try to make things interesting, unusual type things, or maybe things that are in the news. So I enjoy doing the View from Wayne America. I always thought maybe it'd be nice if we could get, besides getting it on the radio, maybe to get it on cable TV. Not that it would make any difference, but, you know, it might give the people that were listening an opportunity to see the people that I might be talking to. But it's just been a very interesting thing for me and a fun thing, and kind of gets me out of bed in the morning.
And over the years, Mark became famous for the close of his TV shows.
When you think back on things that have happened in broadcasting, when I was at Lincoln, I started using a phrase at the end of my shows, which we might use at the end of this one. Have a good day, the rest of this one, a good tomorrow, and take care of yourself. People almost remember that to this day, and I've not been at Channel 10 and 11 in, let's see, about 30-some years. But they still remember that there was nothing in particular about that except it was something I came up with, and I tried to use it every end of every broadcast. One of the fun things that I've done over all the years is something we called the Friday Night Roundup, which was putting together all the scores of football, basketball, track, baseball, and all those things on Friday night. Plus, we had a segment when we visited with Bob Devaney. But the thing about it was, we've got one year I got the bug to go and contact these schools and ask them to send a banner or to send a picture or to send a cap or to send a hat or to send something that represented their school. And I think at one time we had over 200 different items that we displayed on Friday nights. And the last show that I did in, I think it was May of 1980, or may have been in the month before April of 1980, we had all of those things hung up in the studio, and there was a couple of guys that did that every week, and we continued to get stuff. But the phrase, I don't know where it came from, it just seemed appropriate, and I use it there and continue to use it. I don't use it so much anymore because it doesn't mean so much to me as it did then.
56 years on the air and still going strong. Mark Ahmann, this year inducted into the Nebraska Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
Have a good day, the rest of this one, a good tomorrow, and take care of yourself, won't you?